And we are joined on the Heister Automotive Group hotline by the head coach of the NC State football team, Dave Doeren. Dave, thank you very much for taking the time and jumping on the show.
You bet, Tim.
Everybody, the judges finally made the ruling. Revenue share is allowed, and it's coming to college football. So I won't dance around it. How much money are we talking on the football side of things? Like, are we shopping top shelf?
Yeah, well, it's been something that's been, a long time coming. Obviously, it's been in the news forever. Excited that they're starting to have some guardrails around it and, some equality when it comes to what each school can spend. And then obviously it's up to each athletic director to make their decisions on their sports. But we're excited, and, I know at NC State we're going to be very competitive.
Is that the way it goes? Like if you feel you need more money, are you going to the athletic director? Is that kind of the hierarchy? Yeah,
that's where it starts.
And I appreciate you for answering this because it's all brand new. What's your understanding of what you brought up the guardrails, the Deloitte kind of third-party NIL evaluators? What's your understanding of what they will and will not allow as far as NIL deals for your players?
Well, that's kind of going to be the new piece in this. Any deal that's $600 or more will go through that third-party verification. And, the way they've explained it to us is they've got an algorithm put together that basically tells you whether those are fair deals or not based on the market value that they determine through all these things they've done with NBA, NFL, and so on for what players should be able to make in that space. To be able to answer that, I'm going to have to go through it, because this is the first time we've had that. So, based on the understanding, there's a lot of oversight. They've got really good software that they're using, which they've shown all the coaches, and we'll just have to get through it. It's really learn by doing right now, but it's nice to know that there is some oversight. There is some definite enforcement. They're going to be doing things, standard for each school, which all you ask for in the NCAA is as level a playing field as you can so that the talent and the coaching can be a major player in it.
Dave Doeren, NC State football coach, connecting with us here on the drive on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. Coach, if you start talking brand awareness, right? So many things in football. The most famous is the quarterback. Do you have conversations with CJ Bailey about how his life may change with all of this and with the money and the fame and everything that comes with the changes in college sports?
Yeah, I think one thing you have to do with all these guys, even pre-NIL, when a guy has a really good freshman year, you worry about him. You worry about their humility. You worry about, what got them there is what made them have that opportunity. And sometimes the pats on the back and, we call it the big head, can get in the way of really the process. And CJ is a really humble guy. He's got an incredible family. But anytime a guy comes in highly ranked, he's going to have a lot of accolades, and he's got to learn how to manage that. And that's definitely a part of our job, is to be a part of that process and make sure that they are, and if they need help, that we give it to them. And then you try to be in front of it, as a guy's young and having that success to talk to the player, talk to the parents, and make sure they know that we're available to them. And, we've been a part of this. We've seen guys really succeed in that space and seen guys fail. And it happens to coaches too. I think we're all human beings, and it's easy to get caught up in that, and forget about what got you there. And so, you try to use your common sense and let your relationships grow in those moments, because it is an opportunity to help them as young men.
When it comes to playing time and statistics and everything, now that it could be tied to like literally more money for these players if they have a big season or a breakout, do you how? I don't even know if you may have dealt with this already, but do you anticipate maybe some more disgruntled nature from players because there's a little bit more scratch on the line?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Right, I assume with these guardrails, right, the better player you are, the higher your NIL deals can be. When when statistics decide a lot of that, like, an unhappy receiver that's just unhappy because they're not getting the ball very often is different than an unhappy receiver who feels like you're taking money out of his pocket.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really dealt with that. It's definitely something that could happen. I think for us, it's about the team. It's about winning. And, the way that we've set things up, which a lot of teams have done, you have a general manager and your recruiting office that handles a lot of those financial conversations. Our job, why we got into this space and why we continue to do it, is helping young people, competing, building chemistry, building brotherhood, and teaching these guys how to grow up, not just as football players, but as men. And, the stuff you're talking about really hasn't happened at NC State, but doesn't mean it can't. And, for me to continue being the coach that I want to be, it's not about talking numbers. It's about talking about winning and what it takes to be a great team.
Dave Doeren, NC State football coach, joining us here on The Drive. Coach, let's get to some of the changes that impact more of the football side of things. What is your ideal format for a college football playoff, right? Now that they're changing the seedings and making some other tweaks, what would you do in like, Dave Doeren's czar world where you get to control everything? What's the playoff look like?
I do think the conference champion from the Power 4 schools should have an automatic. And after that, I think the top 12 teams ought to be the teams that play in it. You take 12 games of the regular season and 13 in some cases when you play in a conference championship and you're settling it on the field, and your strength of schedule obviously is a part of that equation, and how the committee ranks all of these teams after all that hard work. The teams that have done the best and have put themselves in that top 12 are the ones that ought to be in the playoffs, in my opinion. And the teams that are ranked 1 through 4 ought to be the ones that, get the best opportunity as far as the bye week or the home game or however they're going to put it together. And some of this depends on if they're expanding or not expanding, but whether it's 12, 14 or 16, that's how I'd like to see it. You hate to see a team left out that's in the top 12 if there's 12 teams playing for other reasons. I'm not in favor of 4 AQs or 3 AQs or whatever those conversations have been. If a conference has 8 teams in the top 12, let them all be in. If they have 1, then they get 1 in. And year to year, different conferences are stronger than others, and I think it ought to be based on the body of work at the end of the season.
Well, we're going to need to, if you're going to chase those goals, right, the offense is going to be a big part of it. What are the biggest changes, or more specifically, how will we know this is a Kurt Roper offense now that he's taken over at offensive coordinator compared to years past when he's been on the staff but not the OC?
Well, obviously that'll play out in the fall. I think, Kurt's a guy that believes in being multiple with formations and motions, and, he loves to stress the defense in multiple ways. I think the run game is something that matters a lot to me and Kurt, and, being able to utilize the strengths that we have in the backfield along with CJ's arm. I always feel like when you have a run game, your pass game improves. It makes defenses play you more two-dimensional. They can't just sit on your pass game, and it's got some talented runners here. And so, I think you'll see a little more balance in what we should be able to do with the run game.
Now, normally, like if I were talking to you kind of this time of the year, this question would be about the hype spring ball guy, right? Because there's always someone from the spring practice that we don't know who makes a catch or has a big play, and that's kind of here. It wasn't available to the public this year. So
right.
Who would have been? Who would I be asking about now that surprised you in some of the bigger moments of spring ball?
The running back that we redshirted a year ago, Jaden Duke Scott, had a great spring. He really emerged in that room as far as an unknown from the fan standpoint, because I didn't get to see him play last year. So we're excited about what he did this spring. He would be the one probably that jumps to mind offensively, along with a tight end that transferred in here, Cody Hardy, who really had a good spring for us. Excited about what those guys can do. Defensively, it was a fun spring. We've evolved on that side of the football, and so got to see a lot of guys do a lot of different things. A lot of fun to see, the competition. There's a lot of guys competing for jobs over there. And so, probably the guy that stood out day in and day out, that you wouldn't know.
Oh, come on, spit it out, Coach. I was going to say, I know there's a name.
Wallace. I know there's several of them, but, to get to one, I would say Jazz Wallace had a really good spring for us, a defensive lineman.
Do you like kind of the low-key offseason? Last offseason, there were such high-profile transfers, obviously more access for spring ball. Do you kind of like and your basketball team's taking up a lot of eyeballs with the new coach. Do you like kind of being more low-key this offseason, or do you like kind of the other way last year where you were in the headlines so much?
I definitely like creeping up on people. There's no doubt about it. I think at the same time, when your program earns attention, it's great for your program. But, going into the season with a group of guys that feel like they have a lot to prove, being in the shadows isn't a bad thing. And this group's got a lot to prove, coaches and players. So we're excited about what we've been doing here since January and the guys that we've added and the work that we've put in. And the fact that nobody's mentioning us is just fine.
We're talking with Dave Doeren. Dave, just a few more before we let you go. How is your relationship with Will Wade? Have you spent much time with him since he's taken over the basketball program?
Not a lot. He's been working pretty hard, I got to sit down with him in his first week on campus, get to know each other, and we've been at a few booster events together. But I know what it's like to get to a school and have to recruit and hire a staff. So I know Will's working really hard. I obviously see who he's getting on his team with social media, and excited for him. And I know he's looking forward to getting his team here and working with them. But the few interactions we've had have been great.
You have your kind of one-day camps, your 7-on-7 stuff going on this time of the year. I love a good remember that guy or a good remember when. Who's the best one-day camper you can remember? Somebody that showed up maybe off the radar and had like a scholarship offer in 20 minutes. Can you give us one of those guys?
B.J. Hill, who's still starting for the Bengals, nose guard, came in here and at that time had no offers, and by the end of the camp circuit had multiple. But he really impressed us, and he came to our camp, went to the other local schools, and then came back the next day, and we were fortunate to get him to commit. And he's a 240-ish pound defensive lineman and a running back in high school, and ended up being a great nose guard for us, and has been the same, in his NFL career.
Just because you led me here, reports came out today that Jermaine Pratt he's being released by the Bengals, another one of your guys, defensive player that played for you. How involved are you in tracking and maybe even throwing some advice to your former players in the league as they navigate their career and deal with the ups and downs?
Yeah, I actually saw that. I was at lunch here. We've got some recruits in town and saw it on the ticker, so I haven't had a chance to reach out. But I try to be as involved as I can be. Some of those guys are around here all the time, and we see them in the off season, and some of them have families now. And in Jermaine's case, he's got a lot of kids, and so you don't get to see him as much. But I'd be shocked if he's not re-signed by another team quickly. He's done a great job for the Bengals.
Dave, any big plans for the offseason? You're out there they're fishing or anything going on?
Definitely be fishing at some point. Looking forward to just relaxing with the family and not doing a whole lot. The more I can do less, the better when we get to the summer. So, yeah, you come out of that May time pretty traveled out. And then June for us is a massive sprint, between player development with our own team, building leadership with your own team, and then the recruiting with the official visits that are going on. It's a lot. And so, you look forward to those few weeks that you get at just downtime.
Well, I hope they're biting, Coach, and thank you very much for jumping on the show.
Thanks for having me. Have a great summer. Go Pack.